Well, here we are at the Grand Theatre
Yeah.
with John Grady, the chairman of the Friends.
Yeah, that's right.
And we're here for the unveiling of the Sir Ken Dodd statue, which you've been instrumental for all of this coming ahead. Tell us sort of how it all came about.
Well, when Sir Ken died 4 years ago, the Friend wanted to do something to commemorate Ken because he'd done 60 odd years in Blackpool. He appeared every year since the theatre reopened. He helped to save the theatre. He thought a lot of the Friends as well. He said it was always a very friendly place, the biggest, prettiest theatre in the kingdom and all that. I used to see him regular, and if I wasn't on duty every week time he came on to know why. Well, I'm not here every time. No. So it was really pleasant, never any problems at all. So we decided 4 years ago we want to do something. Then because of all we had then to go through, the actual board people get approval, we could do this. We finally managed to get the approval. And then of course the pandemic held things up, everything was put on hold. But we did manage to get everything up and running and finally got to the stage. When I looked at doing this for today, it was like it's 28 years today since royalty came for the centenary. So that theatre anniversary. So that, well, I spoke to Anne, I spoke to Graham, spoke to the theatre. The theatre's available. So then the theatre took it on board and it became a major event with all the local press, TV and all sorts of things. So,
It's great, isn't it? Like I say, the uptake on it all, and rightly so, because I think what people nationally see of Sir Ken, and maybe what Blackpool sees of Sir Ken, is two different things. He was, although not from Blackpool, you still class him as one of our own.
Well, he appeared every year in Blackpool, even before the Grand Opening. He appeared at the Opera House, you see, before that, so he was a great chap, no problems at all.
I was going to say, and for you, obviously being here all that time, knowing Ken as you did, more on a personal level as well as a professional level, just, people see him jovial, always cracking a joke. Was that what he was like, just off stage?
He was like that all the time. Even when the show's finished, he didn't go home then. As Sean would say, the house manager said, a couple of hours before we'd leave the building sometimes, so. The only once over the years he caught us out and he finished at 11:30 and it started at 7:30 in those days. We don't know what happened, that was it, gone. So.
Right. What about those famous late night finishes? I mean, was that headaches for you guys for keeping it open, telling your staff?
You got used to it.
Yeah.
Like before the theatre opened, when it was still owned by EMI, the trust had an agreement with EMI to show every Friday, once a month, Friday after 10:15. So we used to start at 11:15 for about a couple of hours, fundraising events, and Ken was doing one. We started at 11:15 and finished at 20:05. And at 3 o'clock in the morning on the stage with the big drum. And it was no problem at all with him.
There's none like him, though, is there?
No.
And do you think there'll ever be any like him?
No, they can't replace him at all.
Yeah.
I mean, he used to talk about these, no names mentioned, these so-called comedians. I blame the mothers. No name, he didn't mention names, but he knew, And, for you, we're about to see the unveiling of the statue. Lady Dodd's here as well. What's her take on it all and her feeling around it? Anna was part of his show as well. She used to do a music act in the actual show every Sunday and every time he was here. It was great. Then of course, on his last appearance in October 2017, we did a presentation in advance of his 90th birthday. They've actually got that picture on the screen.
Yeah, wow.
So,
yeah. And like I say, just for the statue now about to be unveiled, what about for you and the Grand Theatre to have it here? How proud is it for the Friends to have it here?
Well, they felt there should be something. We felt there should be something at the Grand because he helped to save the Grand, and he thought a lot of the Grand and the Friends and everything. So that's why it was agreed to. We finally got the permission to do it, and then it went on from there. Graham, the sculptor, unfortunately can't make it. He's really upset about it after all this time that he can't get it.
Well, like I say, I'm sure he'll be here at some point to see it.
He'll come across sometime. We'll do something with him then.
Yeah, absolutely.
He actually did the Laurel and Hardy and Ulverston. And Ken unveiled it.
Right.
And Ken's comments to him then were, "Are you weighing me up?" So this is why he wanted to do Ken Dodd, because he'd done he'd done Eric Morecambe, he'd done Dickie Bird, Fred Truman, all the various.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, John, it's been great chatting to you. Great finding out how the Ken Dodd statue came about, and your memories as well of
Ken bore. He's a lot of Ken Dodd's merch. Well, there's a lot of souvenirs of all theatre stuff, but he's quite a lot of Ken, because he thought a lot of Ken as well, you see.
Yeah, great. Well, listen, it's been brilliant, and many congratulations, you and the team, for bringing the statue here to the Grand, and thanks very much for joining us on the podcast.
Yep, okay.
Okay, here at the Grand Theatre with Adam Knight, the CEO of the Grand. Adam, the unveiling of Sir Ken Dodd statue. I get just another thing in your tenure that's a really big deal for the theatre that's come quickly, which is great.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a hugely exciting day, and it celebrates Ken's involvement with saving the theatre all those years ago, back in the 70s.
So, you've seen the statue.
Yeah.
How is it? And where? One thing I don't know, because at the moment it's on the stage, but where is it actually going to be positioned in its final place?
So it's going to be in the dress circle on the entrance to the theatre itself, at the junction between the entrance to the theatre and up to the dress circle bar. So perfect position if you're after a shandy, and there's a little bit of a gag in today's unveiling about that.
Okay, yeah. And for you, I mean, you've been in theatre many, many years. What are your memories of Ken Dodd? Did you ever meet him at a theatre that you were at, or obviously did you watch him, or what?
I've never met him, sadly, but I have enjoyed watching him. I've enjoyed missing trains and buses and trams because of him. His comedy was legendary. He really was a unique talent, and it was so thrilling to watch him live. So being able to celebrate him here in perpetuity here at the Grand is just really exciting for us.
Were you, one of those that were sat in till maybe midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and waiting? But for the Grand to have this statue, like I say, it must be for the theatre itself a really proud moment as well, that this is the place where his statue will be.
Absolutely, and he joins the ranks of the statues of Eric Morecambe, Laurel and Hardy, and Les Dawson by the same sculptor, Graham Ibbison. So it's great that Sir Ken is recognised in this way, and as you say, at the heart of Blackpool in the Grand Theatre.
Yeah, great. And I suppose as well, it's one of those, hopefully it might inspire young comedians to take up comedy, because it is probably say, is it the toughest job on the stage being a comedian?
I have to say I wouldn't want to do it.
Yeah.
But I think you're right, and I think the comedy of Sir Ken has inspired so many people, as we've heard earlier today from comedians from Ricky Tomlinson, Roy Walker, Mick Miller. It's inspired many people, so I think you're absolutely right. The next generation will see that and recognise it.
Fantastic. Well, Adam, thanks so much. I know you're a very busy man. There's mayors and all sorts coming in, so we'll have to let you go. But yeah, it's been brilliant talking to you once again, and happy Sir Ken Dodd statue unveiling day.
Thank you.
Here we are then at the Grand Theatre once again with the brilliant Mick Miller. Mick, listen, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
You and Ken Dodd, on stage must have had lots of laughs, but off stage must have had more laughs maybe.
Yeah, well, he was God to me. When I was in Liverpool starting off as a comic, he was just like a god. He was to go on stage, for 3 hours. And not long jokes, one-liners.
Yeah.
That's a lot of material. I struggle after 50 minutes, but, and I can't sing.
And because that was his thing, wasn't it? Is that not only did he tell great one-liners, is that he'd rattle off an opera number as well.
And he had 3 number 1 hits.
Yeah.
And then he did Hamlet. He just an incredible and a ventriloquist.
Yes, that. Yeah. A proper variety man, which they're not about anymore, are they? Really?
I used to say to young comics, I said, "Go and see Ken Dodd, and you'll learn more in that 3 hours."
Yeah, and I bet they did. For you, and we talked about this before with some of our other guests, it's the hardest job in the world being a comic, as you certainly vouched for that. But he made it look so easy.
Yes. Yeah. He had a few props. We know he had a few props, but just the material, and bang, 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 bang. It was it was poetry to watch. You know, he was just, and a lovely man as well.
Yeah,
a lovely man.
I was going to say, what was he like off stage then? For you, you obviously would have known.
He was lovely. He loved. We used to have a thing in Liverpool. Well, it's still going, called the Good Turn Society, and it was a big charity, and it was Ken's baby. So it was about 3 times a year, and I think Lady Anne now has carried it on.
Right.
But it was great. I was there for his 90th birthday, and we had a real good catch up and a good laugh. You know? And it was because it was his 90th birthday. Obviously, we had a meal, but you know, usually at 12 o'clock, you usually get bacon sandwiches.
Yeah.
We had jam sandwiches.
Right. Yeah.
And it was on the menu.
Yeah.
For the jam butty minds.
Yeah, which we've got here. We've got some jam sandwiches that have come out here as well, which is so enjoy some of them afterwards. But I mean, this is the ultimate accolade, isn't it? And I mean, you've played here many times.
Well, I mean, and for the theatre, I think over the years, I was saying before that, I mean, like when the Grand was struggling a bit, you know, he packed it every Sunday for how many years, you know, which was, now obviously they're very grateful, you know, I mean, he was just, and it's such a beautiful theatre. I mean, I've done summer seasons here. It's just like you can actually eat them, you know.
Yeah.
I work the cruise ships now a lot, and on the Queen Elizabeth, Cunard, and the Queen Victoria, the theatre in the ships is based on a Matcham theatre.
Is it?
Yeah.
Why is that? What, for a comedian, why is this sort of style theatre so good for you?
Well, you can see the boxes, I mean, like really, and you can see their eyes.
Yeah.
You know. A lot of theatres, the Winter Gardens, I mean, like 3,000, you know, you can't really react with the audience. But here, I mean, the first 6 rows, you can see the laughter.
Yeah.
Also, you can see if they're not laughing.
Yeah. That didn't, I suppose, did that ever happen with Sir Ken?
I don't think so. I mean, he had such a fan base,
Yeah.
you know, and not just Liverpool and Blackpool, I mean, all over the country. Everywhere he went, he sold out, you know, which is a great compliment to the man.
Oh, definitely. Talk to us about Blackpool then, again. For you, it's, again, another iconic town of where you play.
My first summer season was 1979 at the South Pier for Uncle Peter Webster, and I did quite well, so I was supporting, I think, Candlewick Green. And then I got called back next year, you know, they always say by popular demand. Don't know where that came from. So I did 2 seasons, and then I left and I did a Bournemouth season, and then I was back. Yeah. And I just, I love the town that much that I've lived here for 40 years.
So you very much call it home. What are you, let's say you're doing cruise ships now, but I tell you where I see you a lot, and I always enjoy like little YouTube snippets, or I tell you where as well, you're very good, where you're very famous on TikTok. Don't know if you know this.
Yes.
So little snippets come up, and
TikTok.
you have me there for about a minute. I can't what gag was it? It was a small comedy club, and they have you on there.
I do the comedy clubs now, which are brilliant because I'm accepted on. They might say the alternative circuits, but I mean, like, I'm accepted with the newer lads. You know, they've just accepted me. They don't accept many, but they've accepted myself and a few others. So I do Liverpool. I do the Laughter House, Comedy Store, London, Comedy Store, Manchester. So I love it. You know, I love the because you don't need any stage clothes.
No.
You know, it costs you a fortune to get sparkly jackets and dicky bows and shiny shoes.
Yeah.
Just go in Primark, 23 quid, get on.
You've got that. What do you make of all that? I mean, when I say people say, "Oh, I've seen you on TikTok," I mean, for you, are you like, well, great, because these like 15-year-olds coming in learning my comedy?
Well, that's it. And also, you know, it's so funny if you're on stage, especially on the cruise ship. I just come off a Royal Caribbean big ship, you know, and there was loads of teenagers on, all sat in the front row, you know, like 15 of them, you know. Well, I always try and get them involved. You know, my opening gag was to all these teenagers. I said, "Were you upset when I left steps?" So I've got them.
Yeah.
But then they start getting on the phones. And I'm going, "Whoa, what are you doing? Put your phone away." They went, "We're Googling you."
Yeah, wow.
You know, so that's a compliment, isn't
it really is. Well, listen, we must let you go because the unveiling is going to be happening very, very soon. But it's been great to chat to you on the Grand Theatre podcast. So thank you so much, Mick Miller.
My pleasure.
Right, here we are with Steve Royle. Hello, Steve. Just seen you on stage. And I have to say, because as you know on this podcast, this is the unveiling of the Sir Ken Dodd statue. It's now happened. You on stage. I didn't envy it, but you were very good. I nearly swore that, but you were very good. Well done. I didn't envy you at that because that was a tough gig.
Do you know what? I didn't realise how many people were going to be here and who was going to be here.
That's the point too.
Do you know what made me nervous? Not even the faces. Before they even came in, they had little stickers on all the chairs. And the second row particularly, you're looking at it, had like Johnny Casson, Charlie Caroli Jr., Norman Barrett, Mick Mill. I'm going, oh my word. These are people who are far funnier and far more entertaining than me, and which is why it's such a massive honour to be part of it, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, tell us your memories of Ken then, and obviously you being a comic, he must have been one of those people you watched when you got, because he was a variety man, so you know he must have been a big sort of part of your comic.
Absolutely, he was a variety man, and that's why one of the reasons, one of the things we both share is our love of pantomime. And he used to talk about pantomime, and I certainly empathise with this. He used to talk about his love because it brought all the different aspects of variety, all those bits of entertainment, rather, together for one big. And let's face it, pantomime is done correctly. Yeah. It's a variety show. You'll have a juggler, a comedian, a dancer, a singer, and nowadays soap stars and even reality stars. All these people all coming together, and that's what makes it such a unique event. And that, like you said, that is true variety, isn't it?
I didn't know. You said, did he do panto then? You said you watched his panto. I didn't know that.
I know he did panto, and I'm trying desperately to. I should have done a bit more research really and find out what panto I went to see him in. But I'm pretty sure it was in a pantomime, and he came on in the show with a big bass drum, and he'd bang this big bass drum, and then did it as he always did. He'd do way too long with it, about half an hour banging a bass drum, and he'd just sing Silent Night. And as a little 6 or 7 year old as I was at the time, I just found that so funny. And it's weird how little moments from your childhood, certainly theatrical moments, if you like, the moments where you were experiencing theatre for the first time, those little moments stick in your head. And I remember distinctly looking at it and thinking, I want to be there. I want to be up there. I want to do what that man is doing. I want to be stupid for a living, you know what I mean? And so that was his big... But then I mentioned in a speech as well, the thing about Ken Dodd is, when any interview that you see with him, he always talks about... he always imparts some knowledge. He was a great educator as well as being a great entertainer, and he'd always talk. If you're watching a documentary, you watch any documentary with Ken Dodd being interviewed, he's giving advice all the way through it, and particularly about looking people in the eyes. He used to talk about the eyes being the windows of the soul. And one of the last, I think it was the last time I met him, was Dougie Chapman, another local Blackpool legend and impresario. And Dougie gave me my first break in pantomime them years ago. And I was at his funeral, and Ken Dodd was there as well. And I thought, do you know what? He's getting old now, Ken. I need to make sure he knows how grateful I am for all the wisdom he's passed on to me personally through the years. You know what I mean? Through those documentaries, just for the influence he's had basically on my life. So I went over and thanked him, and he was very kind at that point. And then my daughters came in, and I introduced the daughters to her. I said, now this man here is a true legend, right? he's the king of mirth. It's Sir Ken Dodd. Years from now, you might not know who he is right now, but you'll be able to tell your grandchildren that you met him. And then he told this big story about how he looked at me and he said, oh, your father, a very clever man. Look at him. He's got a bald head here. That means he's a thinker, great thinker, because he's bald at the front there, because that's a thinker's pose. With the fist on the forehead, it makes you lose the hair. But your dad is also bald on top here, you see. That means he's a great lover. I'm thinking, is this appropriate, Ken, for the kids? But anyway, he carried on, and then he went, but your dad, you see, is bald at the front and bald on top, which means he thinks he's a great lover.
He was always on it, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah, that's
you know
the thing.
I mean?
That's the thing.
I've interviewed loads of comedians, and especially modern comedians. I find, I don't know if because you've interviewed many as well, but modern comedians, they have their act, as brilliant as it might be, but off stage sort of thing.
Sometimes it's hard to coax humour out of him, isn't it?
I get the impression then when you meet him, and every time you met him, that he was always on it. There was never a moment when he was never off being a comedian. Yeah,
I think there's like a catalogue in his head.
Yeah.
All his jokes throughout his vast experience that he had, and whatever topic came up in conversation, he'd flick to that chapter in his head and then come out with a gag for it. Yeah, he was brilliant for that.
And did so much as well for the Grand, didn't he? I mean, this is what, again, maybe some people don't know, but, this place nearly closed down. And, he was instrumental in helping just keep this theatre. Well, without him, it'd been maybe a car park, maybe.
He talks about it being the perfect theatre. It's the perfect size he's talking. I suppose he's, again, someone who's done these massive 2,000, 3,000 seater venues, and he must have found them a little bit impersonal, and they can be for comedians particularly. They're very well suited to big musicals and etc.
Well, I was thinking you've got that experience. I remember you being at think about the Phoenix Nights tour, MEN Arena, when you were doing that, 20,000 odd there.
Yeah.
So, and as a comedian, when you were doing your act, are you having to wait for the laughter to come back and thinking, I'm not quite...
Yeah, you literally do, because it takes just the sound system is delayed. So the people at the back, you'll hear a laugh. You get your laugh, which you normally get in a club or in a little theatre like this. You get it immediate, and then you hear another laugh as the people at the back of the arena get it. So it teaches you, there's just different techniques to use it. One of the actual advantages of doing a huge venue like that is you have the cameras on you nowadays.
Right, yeah.
So in actual fact, whereas you think they're not going to see, particularly someone like me who thinks I'm very visual comic, facial expressions, etc. When you've got a TV camera right in your face, you actually can do the tiniest little movement and it'll pick up on, because people are generally, as much as you go to a live gig, let's face it, we've all been to it. And then we'll end up watching the telly through the whole live gig. You go, what's the point of that? But you are absorbing the infectious laughter around you, aren't you? Yeah.
Like you say, as for Ken, you talk about his, wisdom always passing on. I suppose he was always very confident in himself that, he could just always pass his wisdom on, pass on tips and techniques. Because let's be honest, there was nobody like him that was going to take his gig, for example.
But you know what? I've just spoken to a little old lady just came up to me. I'd love to be able to tell you her name. I don't know who it was, but she used to work with Ken when he very first started.
Wow.
Right? And she says, as a teenager, he was very, very nervous. And a friend of hers basically nurtured him, gave him the confidence to go on stage and perform his act and built his confidence. And I said to her, that's probably why he would have remembered that all his life. And that is probably why he then went on to impart his knowledge and his experience to other people as well.
Yeah.
Do you know what? He was never too... Let's face it, there'll never be a big... superstar. He's definitely up there.
Well, and like I say, he did it all, like opera singing, obviously, but part of the, as we were waiting the background music, it was on, and then I was like, this is all Ken Dodd. You know what I mean? And it's a singer, and then obviously the ventriloquism and
I think because he gets labelled with the idea, Ken Dodd, he went on for hours, him.
Yeah.
I think in some respects, he was he made a rub for his own back with that, because if he had just gone on and done 2 45-minute halves, you would be going away going, oh my word, that was awesome. Instead, he beat you with his comedy to death, didn't he? And you'd actually end up just limping away from it at 1 o'clock in the morning going, all right, good night. I need a week to recover.
Good value for money, that was Ken. But it's been a great day, hasn't it? It really has. I've seen you afterwards talking to, like I say, all the stars rear and Lady Anne as well. Just some great memories.
Just being in the same room with these people and and I want to just absorb it all. I want tell me every story you know, and I'll try and remember it and pass it on to my kids, because otherwise these stories are going to be lost, aren't they?
No, absolutely. Well, they're still there, so go and catch up with some more. Steve, thank you so much as always. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure.
Well, Lady Anne Dodd, welcome to the Eat Theatre, Sleep Repeat, the Grand Theatre podcast at the unveiling of Sir Ken's statue. What a fabulous day. Talk us through how you're feeling now you've unveiled the statue.
Well, it was just wonderful to see it really properly for the first time, and virtually in situ, because I saw it on stage where everybody could see it. And I've seen the niche that it's going into on the circle bar, really, just by where they do the coffee and everything.
Yes.
It's a lovely old-fashioned niche there. It's beautiful. I've dusted it. I took my tickle stick up there, give it a little tickle. And it wasn't dusty, but it's ready anyway.
Yeah. It's great. And you've seen this sort of in stages, haven't you, from Graham the sculptor?
Yes.
He sort of said, listen, watch any ideas, and you give him a bit of advice on the hair, I believe.
Well, I went over to Barnsley with 2 or 3 people from the Friends, and it was lovely to see Graham Ibsen working in his studio.
Yeah.
he didn't really need me to tell him anything, but he said, "Are you pleased with it?" Oh, I said, "It's marvellous, it's marvellous." But I just felt the hair was just a little flat. I said, "You could whisk it up a bit." He just touched it up a little.
Which is about right. When
yes, I think so. Because it wasn't always, if he sang, he would always pull it down a bit and make it look a bit tidier. But it's just perfect. It's the face, the image, and Dickie Mint, and it's the happiness that comes out of it.
Yeah,
really.
I think it's great. But behind the sort of the cloth, I was a bit like, well, is he sat down? I wonder how this is going to be. And then when it unveils, like, everything's there that needs to be. So do come to the Grand and see it. I think you'll
look forward to it.
Yeah.
When do you think they'll be putting it in the little
I think
niche?
I would say pretty much straight away. I don't think they'll waste any time with that. What about Ken? Because we've talked a lot about Ken on stage. The comedians have been sat where you are now, about the stories about going on tour and being with him and the advice he gave. Ken at home, what was Ken like at home?
Well, he was always, the theatre was his life. He loved books, he loved reading, studying humour, but clever books, psychology of humour and things like that. He enjoyed that. And he would always have a notebook on him. He always used to say to me, if you get an idea, write it down, because don't think you'll remember it.
Yeah.
And that's so true, and he used to advise anybody, certainly anybody in the business, if you get an idea, have a notebook there, write it down straight away, which is very true. And basically, he never stopped writing. I mean, I've got literally 1,000 notebooks now we've been through. They're not really diaries, although they do say dates. Right. And he would write up after he'd been on stage, he'd write up at the end of the... And at home, he'd be writing... I suppose it just always saw him writing, and there were notebooks all over the house.
Was it always jokes, just writing jokes?
No.
Just ideas, thoughts,
ideas, concepts. Very deep. And thoughts, quite deep thoughts, serious thoughts, thoughts about different subjects. Very amazing, really. There's so much material there in a way. They're not jokes, they're things that tickled him. He used to refer to the Greek philosopher. He said, it's seeing the things incongruity. Right. And this famous Greek fellow said, why can I never think? Said, it was a buckled mill wheel. Imagine a wheel that's just not quite, it's just out of true. Yeah. And that's what comedy, a lot of it is. It's just taking things off a bit out of true. Because I can see, I've seen people try to tell his jokes and they don't know why they haven't gone. Because they've not created it themselves. Yeah. And, I mean, I'll tell you what, well, he used to do one where he used to say to the audience, right, now, would all the ugly ones come down and sit at the front? You have? Good. Then on to the next gag. Nobody's offended, no problem. Yeah. Just a gag. But I heard somebody do it somewhere, thinking get the audience going, and he said, now, all you ugly ones, come along, come and sit down the front. Come on, sit down the front. Thank you. I had no idea why it was funny. Why didn't it? Yeah. It's awful. People say, well, I'm not.
He just had that, didn't he?
It's a knack.
Yeah,
it's a knack.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's something you learn over the years. And he loved advising new comics who are really interested in what he would call real comedy that doesn't need swear words to make it an impact.
Because he didn't, did he?
He didn't need to. He said the comedians that he was brought up on, as it were, didn't swear. They didn't need to. Men amongst themselves, he'd probably tell a few snorters, but that's just men in a group, and that's it. But he didn't think it was right for a family audience. He always said, I wouldn't tell gags, and I thought my mother could listen to them. I'd only tell gags my mother could listen to as well. I wouldn't mind my mother there, because there are mothers in the audience who might be offended. He didn't want to offend, but he wasn't being goody-goody. It was just, he didn't...
That was his style.
He didn't need to swear.
And that was his style.
And there are comics like that these days, who are brilliant. I mean, I think of Tim Vine, he's very, very good, and he doesn't seem to swear.
No, you're absolutely right. And what about, this town, Blackpool? It held a fond place and a fond memory for him, didn't it?
Oh, yes. Blackpool, he really, in one way, I'd hate to say it, he conquered Blackpool.
Yeah, he did.
He had to. Yeah. He had to. You have to work to get there and then stay up there. It's work. You don't just get it automatically. And he did some wonderful shows. I mean, the big shows at the Opera House, of course, there was big money put in, the big waterfalls, horses and everything on stage. George and Alfred Black, amazing shows, and that was in the 60s and 70s. And the last one was 1981. And of course, here, they were putting on reviews, theatre, weeks, seasons of plays and things. All the theatres were full. All the theatres were busy.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't one or the other. People would come on a Monday, or Saturday generally, if they were doing a week. And the first thing they do, I've got friends who used to do this, go around all the box offices and buy the tickets for the week.
Yeah.
They'd see a different show every week, every night. Sometimes two, you know, first house here, second house there.
Yeah.
Absolutely wonderful. And you couldn't move in Blackpool, and that's not that long ago.
No,
because it was before people started going abroad and could be sure of weather.
Yeah.
I think that's the only thing that spoilt it, that you didn't get the weather.
And it is starting to, hopefully, the variety started to come back a little bit. You know, that's the main thing as well. But it's been a fantastic day. I bet you've met lots of people and reminisced and stuff like that. I mean, it's just been a great day for you, has it?
Seen some lovely friends. I know there's a couple who just walked past me before, and I've got to find her again because she was trying to go up to me, and somebody went there and somebody here. So yes, it's just lovely.
Great.
I loved coming to Blackpool.
Yeah, well, it's been great having you on. Thank you so much. I'll let you go and, again, mingle around, because I know there's a lot of people want to come and talk to you, but it's been lovely, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so back on the podcast, Eat, Theatre, Sleep, Repeat, with Linda Tolson, who, Linda, you were one of the original Friends members when this place was under serious threat of non-existence. And we're here, obviously, at the Sir Ken Dodd unveiling of the statue, who played a big part, obviously, in keeping this theatre alive. But I want to just touch on those days when this place, and there was a real sense that this might not be here. What was it like when you first sort of heard those cries that the Grand might not be here?
I think it's really important to set things in context. And in the late 60s, the council had great plans for Blackpool. It was to become a shopper's paradise.
Right, okay.
And there would be arcades and boulevards, and it would be a very, very beautiful place to come and shop. But unfortunately, right in the middle of those great plans was this little Victorian theatre. So some of us kind of knew that things might have been happening in the late 60s. And luckily, a man called Geoffrey Finestone realised that what might happen and managed to get the theatre listed. Right. So I really think his role should be always remembered, because that was very important. So, you know, cutting through to the early 70s, if we go to 72, one or two people walked down Church Street one day, past the theatre. The theatre had closed rather quickly and rather surprisingly, and on the door was a small notice. And the small notice said that they were informing us that they were about to get planning permission to demolish the theatre. And it was shocking, and it was very worrying. And those of us who had always come to the Grand, both as spectators and performers, some of us, were desperate. So we all rang each other up when we got home and said, "You realise what's happening?" And that kind of kicked it off in 72.
That must have been, I'm thinking back to those days, if you think now, there'd have been social media, it very quickly would have been kiboshed, you'd have thought. But back then, there'd have been letter writing, lots of time wasting and thinking, are they writing back? It must have been so difficult.
You are so discerning, because that is exactly what it was like. Nobody did things like save a theatre in that day. It was revolutionary. We did have like coverage on national newspapers that this small band of people in Blackpool were actually trying to sort of go against the council, I have to say, and stop a theatre being demolished. Yes, it was very, very surprising. But, you know, we did get together, we put a petition together, and we had a big meeting in 73 at the Imperial Hotel, and we decided, well, we're going to go ahead or were we going to let it happen? And at that meeting in 73, it was in the late winter, early spring of 73, we decided we would fight it. But because Geoffrey Finestone had got it listed, it was good, because you can pull down a listed building, but it is more difficult.
Right.
So it had to go to public inquiry because it was listed. And the public inquiry was held in 73. And it was like we can talk about this on another occasion, but it was a David and Goliath confrontation.
I can imagine, yeah.
But it did, after 5 months, the minister did find in favour of the Grand, and the Grand could not be demolished. But unfortunately, we didn't own it. The EMI company owned it. So for 4 years in the 70s, it was just wrangling. But people like Ken knew what was going on. I mean, Ken is legendary for his love of live theatre. And we were losing theatres all over. I mean, of those 150 Matcham theatres, I think there are 19 left. Wow. And they're all Tesco or car parks. Yeah. So, he would know, but because we didn't own it and we didn't have access to the building was just shut and in a terrible state of repair, there was little could be done from his point of view until 1977. And in 77, a negotiated settlement was agreed with the EMI company. And the EMI company said, OK, we will refurbish the building. We will let you have the building for 2 weeks of live theatre. Right. And we put on Godspell and Fallen Angels, top companies. Yeah. We will let you hire the theatre for 10 evening performances, and we will do all that, but most importantly, we'll give you an option to purchase if you will not oppose the bingo licence.
Okay. Right.
So bingo went into the theatre.
Right.
And we started fundraising, and that is where Ken Dodd came in.
Because he did the Sundays, didn't he?
Well, he actually did some of those late night shows.
Right, okay.
But the shows had to be in the winter, and they had to be after bingo. So we are asking Ken Dodd to begin a show at 10:30 at night. And you can imagine how long those shows went on. And my husband, there was usually a raffle involved. So my husband was in the wings with the lovely Lady Anne, waiting to come on and do the raffle tickets, as you do at the end of these things. And Ken came on stage and got the big drum of Notty Ash. Lady Anne said, "Oh dear, that's another half hour." So if I can just tell you that Ken did those shows for us because we were fundraising to buy the theatre. He charged us nothing.
Wow.
He gave us his talent, his performance, but there were only two things he asked. One was that we gave a cheque to the cancer hospital in Liverpool, Clatterbridge Hospital. Yeah. And the other was that we gave his support acts a little bit of money. Because he said, without me, they don't work.
Yeah.
So we did that. But again, Jeff, one night after one of his performances, he went backstage to his dressing room, and outside his dressing room was Ken with a cue of the performers, and he was actually topping up what we had given him, given them out of his own pocket.
And you would never have known that, because he would never have said it. And don't worry about it.
I've said it now.
Yeah,
but like, I'm glad it's been said.
That's what I'm saying. It's one of those. There's always things like there's you hear stories of like George Michael, for example. Who give huge tips to people. He didn't want any press for it. It's only after his death they come out and you go, blimey, wow, what the generosity didn't court the press for it. Just like you say. just did it. But you can't imagine, can you now, Blackpool without the Grand?
No, you can't.
But this was the reality of the situation.
I mean, in just before we managed to buy it in 79, even worse than the late night shows, he actually did a midnight matinee. So we started at midnight, and my husband and I, we drove home. It was light. It was daylight. And we turned into our avenue, and the milk float was in front of us. And this is perfectly true. And I know it's a music hall joke, but we followed the milk float down the avenue. And when we got to our house, he got out and said, "Do you want to just take these 2 bottles in?" So he was wonderful.
Yeah.
And then, that's only before we'd bought it. But once we had bought it, he was the most wonderful ambassador for the theatre. He loved it.
Yeah.
He loved it because of what it was and because of what it had gone through. And it was a survivor. Yeah. Like Ken.
Yeah. And I bet now when you see this theatre, the way it's thriving, because it is thriving, the amount of shows that get put on, the variety of shows, not variety performance, the variety of shows that get put on, especially recently. It must make, do you always think back to those days and think, God, good job we did, good job we stood up for this, because it would have been easy to, oh, well, never mind, we'll move on.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the Grand's always, through the years, had its ups and downs. I mean, the coming of television was a big dip and, various things, but it's still there. And COVID, how many have we lost through COVID?
Yeah.
But it's still there. And how lovely that we've lost Ken, but we've still got Lady Anne.
Yeah.
And I remember her, and I've just been telling her she was a performer in his shows, and she had the best legs I've ever seen.
Well, I know it's been a fantastic afternoon. It really has, and like I say, for Sir Ken to have his statue here and placed here on the bar, which is just, I think, fitting, and I think when people go past that statue, just that nod to Ken that without him, you won't be watching the show here.
Absolutely.
Well, listen, Linda, it's been great having you on. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you.
It's been nice to share it with you.